Literary Festival Director for the Indo-American Arts Council, a not-for-profit located in New York City. Welcome to the 2022 edition of our Literary Festival. IAAC is dedicated to celebrating and showcasing the arts in North America. The Literary Festival is in its 8th edition and showcases writers who bring stories of the Indian experience to the world. The festival runs from November 7th through the 13th, with virtual sessions taking place November 7th through the 11th and in-person events on November 12th and 13th at the Kalem Galleries in New York City. The series of online events are hosted on IAAC's Facebook and YouTube channels each night from November 7th to the 11th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The full schedule with dates, times, and authors is available on our website, iaac.us. We hope that you enjoy hearing from these authors, and thank you again for your interest and support.
Good evening. My name is Sneha Vats, and I'm the Online Programs Director for IAAC. We want to thank you for joining us today and welcome you to this evening's discussion with Mr. Kailash Satyarthi. We are very excited to share with you his works and insights through compelling conversation. This evening, we will have the honor of speaking to Nobel Peace Laureate, Mr. Kailash Satyarthi. He has been a tireless advocate of children's rights for over 3 decades, an Indian social reformer who has campaigned against child labor in India and advocated the universal right to education. In 2014, he was the co-recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize and is founder of multiple social activist organizations. To fulfill his vision of a world free of violence against children, where all children are free to be children, Mr. Satyarthi established the Kailash Satyarthi Children's Foundation. The program this evening is being moderated by Dr. Nirmal K. Mattu, who is the chairman of the Indo-American Arts Council. Dr. Mattu is also the president of the Mattu Center of India Studies at State University of New York and co-editor of the book Ananya, A Portrait of India. We hope you enjoyed the discussion this evening, and thank you again for joining.
Namaskar, Dr. Satyarthi ji.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. I, on behalf of the Indo-American Arts Council, its board members, executive team, and the curatorial staff, feel very honored to have you here today. We have watched your commitment, focus, and ideas for which you have not hesitated to lay down your life for a very long time. And all of us, and I speak on behalf of all of us, not just vulnerable sections of the society all over the world, but all of us, owe a large debt to you. Unfortunately, for the brevity of the time, we cannot go into lengthy conversations and discussions, which I would like to do with you because you are so multidimensional person. But I still want to know and understand you as a role model for rest of us. I would like to get into your, what should I say, mind and heart and soul to get a better understanding. I have read your biography, and there have been many incidents in your life from young childhood that have put you on this path. But obviously, you have to have that kind of personality, that consciousness, those sensitivities to recognize all that. And for the audience who are here, I would like to see, can you relate to some of these life-transforming instances I read about this cobbler and his son at your school, your book collection drive, you're getting all headmasters involved, your circus issue, and Harijan's cooking food. And then you realization that what you call triangular paradigm of politics, labor, illiteracy, and poverty. So you can have some comments. We have read it, but I think when it comes from you, from your heart, to understand a little more.
Thank you. It's again my pleasure and honor to talk to you, Mattuji, as well as all the audience who are listening and watching us. So let me begin with my childhood, I was born and grew up in a small but ancient town called Vidisha in central India. It's close to Bhopal, the capital of Madhya Pradesh. So I was born in a modest family. My father was a police constable who passed away when I was young. But I am lucky to have three elder brothers and one elder sister. And my mother was very passionate for my education. So the very first day of my schooling was the first spark in my life, but it was challenging for the rest of the life. When I was entering in my primary school, which is which was one of the very common municipal schools, I saw a cobbler boy, my age, means about 5, 6 year old, sitting at the doorstep. So I looked at his eyes. He was looking at me and other children whether we are going to give him some job of shoe shining or shoe repairing. But all of us were having new shoes. So he was just looking with empty eyes. And we entered in the classroom. So the first question in my life which I asked to my teacher, I asked her why a child is sitting outside the school gate when rest of us in the classroom. So he looked at me surprisingly, and then he tried to calm me down. He said that it is not uncommon. Poor children have to help the families, and it is good for them and good for their families. But I was not convinced. I asked the similar question or same question to my mother and my other elderly family members and relatives, but answer was more or less same. I might have forgotten it, but every morning and every afternoon when I was going and coming back from school, I would see that child still working, sometimes alone, sometimes along with his father. One day I gathered my courage and stopped and asked the same thing. So the boy was very shy, but his father stood up with folded hands. As you know, in our caste-ridden society, the situation has improved a lot, of course, but not completely solved so far. This some sense of social hierarchy and untouchability still prevails. So man stood up and said with folded hand, "Sir, I never thought about it because my grandfather, my father, and I started working since we were children. And so is my son," he said. And then he looked at me with utmost misery and helplessness, and said, "Look, Babuji, you guys are born to go to school, but we are born to work." I could not understand, but I was very angry. I was very upset and started crying. So when I went back home, I was very, very disappointed because everybody was giving same answer that it is not uncommon. Poor children have to help the families, including his father. But I learned one thing, that whatever is taught to us could be an age-old complacency, age-old mindset, which believes and make us to believe that wrongs are right, injustices are common things, common practices. So was the untouchability and caste system. And that has given me a new perspective of life. That is to question, to see the world with a different eye and try to find answers. And I started seeing children working here and there in the similar conditions and same conditions at street restaurants and other places. And I refused to accept that some children are born to work at the cost of their freedom, their childhood, their future. Why? God has made us one. And I was a God believer. I am a God believer. Always, always. And my parents taught me that we are all sons and daughters of the same God. हम सब ईश्वर की संतानें हैं. तो संतानें हैं तो ईश्वर इतनी गलतियां थोड़ी करेगा कि किसी को बना देगा गुलामी करने के लिए और हमें मजे करने के लिए. So that sense not only prevailed in me, but it has gone deeper and deeper. That was the first thing. But later on, Mattuji, as you referred, that I saw some of my friends left schooling because their parents could not afford syllabus books or fees. And that has prompted me or motivated me to think differently. Instead of crying for those friends, I started finding solutions, because I always believed that no problem is born without solution. Solution of every problem is born in the womb of the problem itself. One has to be a little bit patient, resilient, strong from inside, and try to find innovative ways and solutions to that problem. Then it can come out from the problem itself. So I started, book was the problem because, or the poverty of those children were problem. So with the help of another friend of mine, one day we decided to go in the neighborhoods and started collecting books. It was a funny theater-like thing. People thought, what kind of drama is there, that one of my friends was pulling the cart, the thela, this four-wheel cart, which is used by the vegetable and fruit vendors, and he was standing on the thela. And I was chanting, brothers and sisters, uncle, aunties, dadi, dada, please listen to me. Your children have gone to new classes, and think of those children who have dropped out because their parents could not afford. And then they started looking at me with curiosity, and my answer was simple. I said that your children's books are now becoming useless for you and for them. So why don't you put in my cart so I can help other children? And that has gone like a wildfire. And within 2 hours, or little more than 2 hours, we were able to collect over 2,000 books. 2,000 books. And that time I was 11 and my friend was 12. And every time, I tell you, every time when somebody brought a book and put on my cart, it was like a new house. A new personality is being built, and these were bricks in my new personality, which have believed in humanity, which have believed in goodness of the people. If you go with innovative ideas, with some courage, and leave aside your shyness and so on, and there are people who are ready to help for the good cause, and especially for children who need you. So that was the beginning of my another, So one thing was a combination of anger and compassion when I encountered that cobbler boy. And second thing was finding solutions using that compassion. And I converted that sadness, that sorrow, losing my friends in my classrooms near my seats, into some actions and the people's participation for doing good. And those books were collected, and then teachers, headmasters, and other people started helping. And within no time, more than 10,000 books were collected, and we created a book bank. And people started calling me Kailas Book Bank Wala. When I go to my hometown, they still call Book Bank Wala. So the book bank was later on merged with the city library. But needy children used to borrow books for 1 year during the session, and they used to return. So this slowly grown, and then I changed my name because I didn't believe in caste system, and I realized that this caste name is also a kind of notion and perpetuation of some sort of hierarchy, social hierarchy in the society. So I gave up my family name, which was caste name, and the Brahmin name. So I gave a new name to myself, and that is Satyarthi, means seeker of truth, as you know.
I am Kashmiri by birth, Kashmiri Pandit, but I grew up in Delhi. Kashmiri society, this caste was, Brahmins were divided into different groups, but because of our Kashmir Shaivism principles and because of our tantric traditions and Buddhism, which grew in Kashmir, it was little different. But it was a bad system that had a tremendous deleterious effect on growth of India for a long time. Only thing is that in our system, with these Brahminical values of education being the ultimate thing, and when British came to India, we had higher literacy rates than Britain. What happened to us during that period? Was it because we were a colonial mentality developed in us, and we lost some of our values? Because even in Gita, not in Gita, in Mahabharata, it says, Ekam Varnam, I'm trying to remember, Edam Vishwam Purvam Asya Yudhishthara, Karma Kriya Visheshena Chaturvarnam Prachishtatam. We were all one Varna. And even though there are conflicting things in when we read Gita, other places where it talks about problem of mixing of races, of castes, but something went wrong. Instead of just purely organizing the society, went to this hierarchical system of society. But it's people like you who have that sensitivity from birth who recognize that. I'm going to jump here and there. The reason is for the time.
Sure.
Will you tell us something about, it means you have led many marches, you established many movements. So I'll go to a couple of them. You have the Save the Childhood movement, Bachpan Bachao Andolan. Then you had also this Good Weavers organization, because I know carpet manufacturing in Kashmir. They always tell us, children have smaller fingers but I went there as a young man to see how they do. And it has nothing to do with the fingers, because it's a question of tightness. If you want to put more knots in a carpet, I can do as good as a small child can do. So and then you got involved in sporting goods and global cosmetics, chocolate industry in Pakistan, India, Nepal, Africa. You were successful in inclusion of trafficking in Indian Penal Code 370 and 378 section, and formalization of minimum wages for quarry workers. So my question is, how you are able to convince where profits dictate behavior, most of them. What did you? It's not very easy to change a capitalist view where morality comes number two, profits come first, ethics come number three. How were you able to convince them? You showed them with a moral persuasion, or that you showed them they'll do better in long run?
It was not an easy task. But first of all, I was convinced, and I tried to convince the policymakers and society in general, that when we talk of child labor or child slavery, it is not simply a humanitarian issue. It's a political issue, economic issue. It's not a legal issue, but it is also a deep ethical and commercial issue, and so on. And therefore, the triangular paradigm you mentioned was that child labor is result of poverty, but it perpetuates, it continues poverty. If so many children, like today, 160 million children in the world are working as child laborers. So if they keep on working like that, their education is denied. Their present and future is denied in terms of growing and competing with the rest of the world. They will also be responsible for adults' joblessness. This 160 million number of child laborers means 160 million seats in empty seats in classrooms globally. It means 160 million jobless adults because every single child laborer is working at the cost of one adult's job. When we talk of quality of performance, productivity, quality of production, then children can never do it. That was a myth that because of the nimble fingers, they make good carpets and they make other things. It is not true. And I was able to prove it scientifically that the best quality of carpets are made by very, very old people in Kashmir, in Afghanistan, in Iran. They were not children. Children made carpets were not so fine because they could not put so many knots per square inch. Then that is the quality of the carpets. So you know better than me about the Kashmiri tradition of carpet weaving. So on one hand, we tried to convince the people with arguments, economic arguments also, that if you are able to remove child labor and replace them with able-bodied adults and trained adults, then your profit margin will go high. And there were a lot of studies we conducted in different occupations. That is one. And secondly, it was not enough. So there was a deterrent also. And we fought for the laws. You mentioned some of the laws. Not only in India, but globally, there was no international law against the worst forms of child labor, including slavery, hazardous occupations, and so on. And we had to organize this march across 103 countries, which went on for 6 months simultaneously from 3 corners of the world with a demand that we have to have an international law. So we needed the legal framework, judicial framework to hold the companies and the governments both accountable, the government agencies accountable. So that was another thing. The third thing was the ordinary social awareness. We fought for right to education in India. I've been freeing children from child labor and trying to enroll them in a school, but their admissions were denied many times. And there was an incident that a headmaster was so angry with me, he called his peons and other people to throw me out because every time I was bringing children whom they call wretched, indisciplined children and uncivilized and so on, because they were all freed from slavery and child labor. So we prepared them to go to school so they could read and write, but they were not so cultured as the headmaster was hoping for. So I was so angry. So I sat outside the school gate. I said, I'm going to sit on hunger fast if you don't allow these children to school. That was back in late 90s. And then I called my friends and they said that it is illegal. You cannot sit because you cannot demonstrate or do agitation because in India's constitution, education is not a fundamental right. There is no law, subsequent law. So there's no constitutional provision, neither the law. So how would you do? I said, we are going to change the law, or make the new law. But it was not possible without constitutional amendment. So I said, let us change the constitution. So everybody laughed at me, including my family members, my friends. I was not in politics. I'm not in politics. And I was not famous either. So it was a small group, a small NGO. So we organized a march that was very important for Indian perspective or the future of India's generations and generations to come, from Kanyakumari to Kashmir and from Kashmir to Delhi. It was a zigzag march which went on for months with this demand that India needs constitutional amendment and constitution should be changed and make education fundamental right. 163 parliament members from different parties joined the march at different states, and finally we succeed. Within 6 months, constitution was amended, and later on the law followed. So we fought for education because we know that we have to break this vicious circle or vicious triangle of poverty, child labor, and illiteracy. So we have to hit the illiteracy part by ensuring good quality free public education for children. On the other hand, we have to fight poverty. So whosoever is fighting poverty, government or non-governmental organizations, we have to support them and encourage them. So we kept on doing it. And then freeing children. So we have proposed, instead of going against the industry, I was never ever against any industry, but I kept on saying that my fight is against this menace of slavery of children. I am against an evil, and that evil must end, and you should support me. If you don't support, then the consumers will punish you one day. Because the evolution of human civilization is evolution of freedom. We are moving towards freedom, and if this freedom is suppressed or curtailed here and there, then so many repercussions come, then violence comes, so wars come, and so on. Human freedom is the key, and that cannot be compromised. And I always say that there is no substitute to human freedom. The freedom of our mind, freedom of our soul, freedom of our heart. We have to be free. So we are moving towards that. And the company should also learn and respect that freedom is non-negotiable. And freedom of children is also non-negotiable in their supply chain and production chains. So many of such people were convinced. And I have been suggesting that there should be a way out of monitoring, certification, and promotion of those goods or those rugs to begin with, which are free of child labor. Similarly, we launched the campaign for Pakistani and Indian children who were working in sporting goods or Ghanaian and in Ivory Coast, children were working in cocoa beans production and so on. In many industries, in many countries, we have come out with the solution that consumers should demand for their own conscience, ethics, and morality that they should not use any products which are made out of child slaves, where the adult family members or parents of these children are jobless. So they should demand. It does not mean that they should boycott products made in certain countries or certain products. Boycott is not the solution. So creating demands or positive demands, or you can call it positive discrimination, in choosing positive things, in choosing ethical things. And it worked because the consumers like that idea. If there is a certification in rugs which are produced free of child labor, then we will definitely buy it. Why should we be the party to the suffering of children? So consumers demand, as well as number of corporations. Some came, of course, out of pressure, but many also came out of their consciousness. And they understood that I'm not against them. Because whenever they talk to any NGO or any human rights body or human rights organization, they feel that these people are troublemakers. But I said that I'm your brother, I'm your friend, I'm your son. Why don't we sit together and find solutions to this problem and make this world a better place? So that worked well, and it helped in not only reducing number of child laborers in those industries, but it helped in better quality production, better in demand, enhance in demand, and much more profit. So we were able to prove that profit lies in this kind of solutions, not in just hiding the problems.
Thank you. Since we are talking about moral persuasion and eventually codifying these things into legal system, it's sometimes a little bit bothersome that Palermo Protocol was, I think, ratified in year 2000. Worst forms of child labor convention adopted by ILO as ILO 182 was in 1999, and then Sustainable Development Goals by United Nations with their 17 goals. And then 8.7 says, and I'll read it to you, every government will take immediate and effective measures to eradicate forced labor, modern slavery, and human trafficking, and secured the prohibition and elimination of the worst forms of child labor, child soldier, and by 2025 end child labor in all forms. How are we doing? We see uh, guerrilla armies with 11-year-old, 10-year-old kids. Uh, the numbers, some of the numbers I have read from you are where out of school children has dropped is only now 58 million. It used to be as high as 113 million. Uh, my question, how is world doing?
World is not doing so good, to be blunt and frank. Very unfortunate, very unfortunate. Though I am also one of those 17 SDG advocates appointed by the Secretary General, but even then I can confess that the international community is not doing good for its children. And I will give you one example or two examples. That after the start of Sustainable Development Goals, and you just read out 8.7, the number of child laborers has grown from 152 million to 160 million globally. It is for the first time in 2.5 decades. The number was coming down from 250 million to 150 million almost, but that has grown before the pandemic. So there is no excuse. There is no justification. World has not gone poor those days. There was no big economic recession anywhere in the world, but it means that we are not honest. We are not honest to our children because they are not, or the marginalized children in low-income countries are not going to influence the geopolitics. But coming from India, who believe in oneness of humanity, coming from my motherland, where we believe Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that goes so deep into my heart that I cannot really think of borders and boundaries and walls and so on. We believe in oneness. That is India, the idea of India. So Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is not a slogan that we go here and there. When we say Sangachadham Samvadadham Sambho Manansi Janatam, it means let us walk together. But world has to learn how to walk together. World has to learn how to talk together. World has to learn that how to think together. That is the Vedic mantra. So there are so many things which we are born with those values and those virtues. But we cannot make this world a sustainable and peaceful world without learning simple thing that how to walk together. How can you leave your children behind? If you are a father, if you are a grandfather, if you are a mother, if you are a grandmother, you will leave your children at the railway platform and you will board on a train. You cannot be called civilized and human. And that's why I said that we are not doing for our children enough. What is needed? We have come out with a research, and the research has been done on behalf of the laureates and leaders for children, a group of Nobel laureates and world leaders. And for many people, it was a surprise when the report has suggested that only $53 billion additional expenditure can ensure education, healthcare, and protection for every child in all low-income countries, along with support for new mothers, pregnant women and new mothers. $53 billion. These $53 billion are less than 10 days of global military expenditure. For 10 days, we cannot make a resolve that let us believe in humanity, let us believe and let us act in humanity, let us learn compassion, and then make this world a beautiful place. It is a beautiful place. If we look from the eyes of children, the world is very beautiful. But as we grow older, smart, professional, matured, we learn more and more artificial life. And we started leasing with that. We smile because of whether we are going to gain out of it or we are going to lose, when to smile. We don't have courage to cry for ourselves and for our children. So what kind of artificial life we are leading to? I've never come across any rich, very, very rich person who can really living in eternal happiness, self-satisfaction, and joyful life. The joy does not come from what we think. And so are the powerful people. I keep on meeting and talking to prime ministers and presidents all across the world and kings and queens. But I could feel that they are not so, they cannot achieve the inner peace. So how to achieve this inner peace? Matuji, I strongly feel that let us think, let us dig out that inner child inside each one of us. If we are pure in heart, if we are transparent, if we are truthful, if we can forgive others, if we have quest for learning new things, it is not because we are rich. It is not because we are powerful and we are learned people. It is because a child is still inside us. A child is still inside us. So let us strengthen that child to make this world a better place. We have seen that this richness, the wealth, the power, the fight, and then all these things are getting worse due to pandemic and later on due to the war nowadays, and the children are the worst sufferers of these things. Children who have never been responsible for any such crime of war or mass violence or insurgency, they are not responsible for pandemics or poverty or illiteracy, these things, but they are the worst sufferers. Why? We have to think differently. We have to change our things upside down. Let us start with our children. Let us start with our children.
Thank you. I have innumerable questions, but for the limitation of time.
You know about me more than what I can think. I tell you that I have forgotten many of these things because the life is so fast and I'm involved in so many things. But you read so thoroughly about my work and my life. I not only appreciate, but I salute you, Matuji, really. So you can continue.
Yes, you are a multi-dimensional man. I have innumerable questions, but and this being a literary convention and literary festival, I'm curious how you got into writing. Was it to communicate what you see the wrongs in the world and what to do about them, or you had this skill from childhood? You have a book coming out, Tum Pehle Kyun Nahi Aaye? And this is what a young girl told you who you rescued from a quarry. I think I read it someplace.
Yeah.
And she was 8-9 years old and she asked you, why didn't you come? This book, can you say a little bit about it in short because of the time?
Yeah.
I have a couple of more questions.
Yeah. So it's not because I wanted to expose the wrongs in the society. I wanted to suggest some right. I believe in hope. I believe in possibilities. I believe in light. But we cannot simply ignore the darkness. So my writing or my thoughts or my work has always been more or less same. My journey from darkness to light. And if somebody is in darkness, how we can walk together towards light. So when I write maybe poems, my poetry book was published recently. So in all poems, people say that you end your poems with some hope. So I never thought before my publisher said that all poems bring you to some place where you can feel that it is possible. So no despair, but hope. So is this book. So I have written stories of 12 children from 12 different occupations, from stone quarries, brick kilns, and carpet, and so on. And these are those children. None of them is a child now. I mean, they are all young people, or some became fathers, mothers. But I walked with them for years, right from freeing them up to helping them in education and just staying in our Bal Ashram rehabilitation centers and so on, or Mukti Ashram. So one day, when I freed a group of children, and men and women, these children were victims of intergenerational slavery. Their grandparents have borrowed money from the grandparents of employers, stone quarry owners. And so these children, their parents were born and grew up while working there. They have not seen outside world. So after rescuing them, rescue operations are always very, very risky. I lost two of my colleagues. One was shot dead, one was beaten to death. I have scars and injuries on all my body. Different parts of my bodies are broken. So when I was driving, there was a girl sitting just beside me, and maybe 8 or 9 more children. And I was trying to ease them, trying to console them, or counsel them on the way. But they were all traumatized. They have not comprehended freedom. They have never imagined freedom. So they were all shocked. So I thought that there was some bunch of bananas lying in the back of the car, and these children can eat. So I have urged them to eat those bananas. So child from the back has passed on the banana in front. And this girl, she was around 8 years old. Her name was Devli. She picked up the banana and asked that boy in the back that what kind of onion is it? So he said, no, I have never seen such an onion, and neither it's a potato. So they started talking at least whether it's onion or potato or something else. I said, this is banana, eat it. And they started eating after my persuasion. And then I saw that most of them were just throwing banana, they are trying to eat it. And then I realized that I did not tell them how to eat banana. They have to peel it before. And I was in tears thinking how stupid I was. That is the difference between eating banana before peeling and after peeling is a centuries old difference between the slavery and freedom, ignorance and knowledge. Simple knowledge, but it took centuries. Then after some time, when I taught them, some started eating. And this girl put her hand strongly on my shoulder. And then she asked angrily. It was anger, it was trust in me, but it was also sadness, pain. She said, "Kyun re? Tu pehle kyun nahi aayo?" In her language. "Oh man, why didn't you come early?" And I know this was not because of banana. She saw that when her mother was raped and father tried to protect her, save her, then the father was burned with bidis, country cigarettes, and beaten up badly. She has also seen or felt the death of her younger brother in her laps without any medication. So that was the moment of trust in humanity emerged in her, evolved in her. And I tell you that I started crying because God has chosen me for that. Thank God that this girl has gained the faith in humanity, and she is challenging, she is asking. And Devli's question was not just for me. Devli's question was for everyone who believe in humanity, who believe in religions and gods and so on. So I gave the title of this book, "Tu pehle kyun nahi aaya?" Tum pehle kyun nahi aaye? So this story is there, the lengthy story, but this title is there.
Because I'll move a little quick. You have another book, and this is about COVID, Sabhyata ka Sankat or Samadhan. Could you please tell us that in a short form, what did you observe in the last 3 years? The impact on the society, and did the world act as a community or it didn't act as a community? You have some impressions, and in this book you must be, and what it taught us, this pandemic.
When the pandemic erupted, everybody started talking about it, that it is, there was definitely uncertainty and fear and havoc. So people started interpreting it as a health crisis. Later on, people added that it is not health crisis, but pandemic results in economic crisis, financial crisis. And we have seen bad and good aspects of it. Bad aspects was that some people were selling medicines in a sky-high price, or oxygens and so on. Hospitals were looting people. But there were people who had gone beyond imagination to help each other, to support each other. They have forgotten the caste and community, Muslims, Hindus, Christians, everybody helping each other in whatever way they can do. They have started donating plasmas to unknown people in their neighborhoods and so on. So that brought, there's hundreds and thousands of stories of hope and compassion and goodness of humanity. So that was there. But people like me and many more are hoping that the world should learn that the world is not only interconnected, but interdependent. We cannot live without each other. But one example is that when the rich countries globally, G7 countries, have allotted $12 trillion for the global action agenda on COVID-19, $12 trillion. Only 0.13%, I repeat, has been given to the marginalized people in the low-income countries globally. Though it was called the Global Agenda Action, but it was not global, because almost all the money has gone for the recovery of their own banks and finance institutions and corporates. Nothing bad in it. I mean, everybody should do it. But we have some moral responsibility for others to make this world a sustainable place. How can we achieve sustainability? So I have come out with a solution that let us be, which has always been my message or my life, that let us globalize compassion. We have globalized everything. This is the time to globalize compassion. We have seen good and bad of globalizing markets and economies and production, data, etc., information. This is the time to globalize compassion. And for that, 4 things that will stand on 4 pillars, practical pillars. One is that we have to create a supply chain of gratitude, not supply chain of profit, gratitude, because our profit comes off because of so many people are involved in. I'm sitting in this room, and this room has been built by laborers and workers and painters and electricians and so on. So I'm grateful to them. My food, my clothes comes from so many people. So I have to be thankful to them. That will change our attitude. So this is one. The second thing is that we have created very advanced, what we call the Internet of Things in technology. Everything is connected, which we operate. So why can't we create an internet of responsibilities? Because we have, until unless we feel mutually responsible, we cannot make a peaceful place to live. And third thing was, we have created algorithms. Algorithms is the soul of our wealth and progress and technology now. And algorithms are made out of diverse data. But that diversity of data brings about the core solutions, most innovative solutions of the most difficult problems, and that is algorithm nowadays in technology. So let us create the algorithm of diversities. Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Americans, Indians, Africans, Europeans, whatever. So let us learn from diversities and create those algorithms which can make this world a better place. And finally, we have to inculcate, we have to strengthen not just moral leadership, which is the biggest deficit in the world today in all spheres of life, but that is not possible without creating compassionate leadership. Compassionate leadership in society, in uh, politics, in corporations, in medical professional, in education sector, everywhere. When you feel the suffering of others as your own suffering with a strong drive to alleviate that suffering is compassion. So let us create the compassionate, and that is possible because compassion is a biological thing. It is not just a value which is there inside each one of us. And God has given me and you and everyone this wealth of compassion. So that was the crux of this book.
Because of the time, I want to finish this. You have received tremendous recognition, awards, honorary doctorate. If I go on the list of that, I have the whole list. I will be sitting here for next half hour or more just quoting them. But you got Humanitarian of the Year from Harvard University. You got Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Award. And you got Nobel Peace Prize in 2014. And my close friends, like family members, Khans were there. Amjad Ali Khan and his sons, they played there that time. They talked a lot, and they are part of your organization in India also. And I talked to them last night also. They had called me. I read your Nobel Prize acceptance speech, and you started with that Vedic shloka. And I want to show the audience, I'll finish at that, the determination reason for your focus. You said, I refuse to accept that all temples and mosques and churches and prayer houses have to have no place for the dreams of our children. You said, I refuse to accept that world is so poor when just 1 week of global military expenditure can bring all the children to classrooms. I refuse to accept that all the laws and constitution, police and judges are unable to protect our children. I refuse to accept that the shackles of slavery can never be stronger than the quest for freedom. I refuse to accept. That's a wonderful way of exactly we come to know you with those statements. And because you have to go someplace else, I would like to sit here for another innumerable hours and hear from you and learn from you. We are all indebted to you and your organization for doing such a phenomenal work worldwide. You cross the boundaries, so physical and class and caste and economic boundaries, and try to reach everybody and making them understand that the outcome is going to be better. If you educate more people, they become producers in a nation, they buy more things, and you can be economically better. So I thank you on behalf of Indo-American Arts Council. We would like to have another time in which we can, and we would like to do whatever to promote your ideals and how we can be contribute to that, and you can demand and ask anything from this organization. There are wonderful people involved in this, people with compassion. That's probably one of the main things in the world. And I would have wanted to go on that compassion book with Dalai Lama, but the time is a little less. But another time. Thank you very much, and thanks to your organizers who made life easy for all of us. Thank you.
My pleasure.
You have anything?
Namaste. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you for participating in our literary festival. Please don't forget to join us this weekend, November 12th and 13th, at the Kalem Gallery in New York City for our in-person literary festival. Thank you. As the Literary Festival Director for IAAC, I would like to thank you for joining our award-winning authors. IAAC is a not-for-profit, a 501c not-for-profit located in New York City. The program that you just watched was made possible by the generous donation of viewers like yourself. Your donation enables us to support artists and sustain programs that you enjoy. Please visit our website, iaac.us, to make a donation, and here you will also find information on your membership benefits. On behalf of the board and team at IAAC, I would like to thank you for your support and look forward to seeing you at our next